Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to The Point. Hope you're all doing well. A lot to dive into today here on a Tuesday. We got Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight. Do we see the NHL season end? Then we get into off-season speculation, innuendo. We shall see. We'll talk about that game later, get into some props, anytime goal scores, things of that nature. I want to talk to you about Matvei Michkov, a prospect in the upcoming Wednesday night edition of the NHL Draft, which I touched on yesterday. Wednesday, the 28th of June. Had to put it on a Wednesday. It's like having a UFC event on a Sunday. I don't want it. Am I going to watch it? Yes. Stupid, however. Got some baseball takes today. Going to react to the CFL weekend. The Ottawa Senators have sold the team. Still waiting some details on that, so that might be a tomorrow story because I do have opinions on that. The Raptors have a new head coach. The Flames have a new head coach. And then there's where we're going to start today. NBA Finals, Game 5 last night. The Miami Heat visiting the Denver Nuggets. And I went into the game just completely transparent here. I didn't give the Miami Heat much of a chance. I didn't think they were going to win the game. I didn't think it was going to be that close. And that was my overall feeling going in. I just looked at it and said, Denver's bigger, Denver's better, they're at home, and the Miami Heat have got nothing from their backcourt through 4 games. Jimmy Butler's clearly injured or just playing poorly. And I just don't see the Heat keeping this close. But instead, what we got last night was an entertainingly bad basketball game. That game last night was one of the ugliest basketball games I've ever watched. There turnovers galore, bad shooting, bad decisions, stupid fouls. It was a potpourri of awful. But honestly, it had a charm, the game. It had a charm because it made you think of March Madness and young kids and seeing the mistakes that they make, learning from it, and see what you can do after all of it. But it was so fascinating because the game starts and Denver Nuggets have 5 turnovers in the first 6 minutes. They're all over the place. They're throwing the ball to the other team. They're dribbling into traffic with 3 guys, turnovers, leading to fast break opportunities for the Miami Heat. Just opportunity after opportunity for Miami, and they capitalized. I thought both teams were nervous. Both teams were shooting poorly. But the one thing you could say about the Miami Heat early, Max Strus knocked down a couple shots, and he looked like he was in position to maybe find his game a little bit, which he played decent last night. Then in the next stretch, Denver Nuggets go on a 10-0 run. Jeff Green caps it off with a dunk. Emphatically, the Miami Heat take a timeout. And within the next 3 minutes, Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon, and Jeff Green all have 2 fouls before the end of the first quarter. Last night's game was charming and chaotic and horrible basketball for a number of different reasons. The players didn't know what the hell they were doing, and neither did the officials. The officials called everything. Everything. The second foul on Jokic was bullshit. The Aaron Gordon got called for a 3rd foul early in the 3rd quarter, which a clean block. I'm going to get to a Jimmy Butler called foul in a little bit. But this was the 3 bigs at the Denver Nuggets play all had 2 fouls. So you have Michael Porter Jr., who's a 4 maybe, more of a 3, who's basically playing the 5 for a period of time. Bam Adebayo is torching the Denver Nuggets. He's dominating, and everything looks good. But here's the thing. Miami gets a 10-point lead at one point. They're playing okay because nobody played well for long stretches last night. But in the first half, Denver had 10 turnovers, were 3 for 8 from the free throw line, and 1 for 14 from three-point range. And the Miami Heat only led by 7 points. That's when you know, okay, our opponent couldn't have played worse. And we're only beating them by a touchdown, which in the NBA is nothing. Jokic didn't play big minutes in the first half. Aaron Gordon barely. I just went through it. Jamal Murray also had 2 or 3 fouls. So you're up 7 when the Denver Nuggets are playing a bunch of guys that they don't really want to play that many minutes. Michael Porter Jr. is out there every second of it. He's playing so many minutes. He played more minutes last night than he did any game the rest of the series. DeAndre Jordan got onto the court for the first time in the DeAndre Jordan, this isn't Clippers time. This isn't him and Blake Griffin. This isn't 2012. DeAndre Jordan, who is slower than molasses, is out there. And you're only up 7. Now, I'm sure Eric Spoelstra went into halftime not panicking, but I think if you're the Miami Heat fan, you're panicking. Second half, really, I talked yesterday about how I thought Jamal Murray was in the driver's seat to win the MVP. If the Denver Nuggets win, I think he's in the driver's seat to win Finals MVP. It's rare that it doesn't go to the non-superstar, in particular in the NBA. But I thought Jamal Murray is a fringe superstar. He's played as good or better than Jokic. He's had to do a lot. They don't win these games if he's not playing at this high a level. He deserves it, which I still think he did. But in the second half of Game 5 last night, Nikola Jokic won the MVP. In the third quarter, he had 2 steals. He attacked the basket. He had 12 points. And he just did whatever he wanted to do. Nobody could stop him. It was like Game 2 Jokic where he just started scoring. He only finished last night with 28, I believe, which for him isn't a whole lot. But he got points, he grabbed rebounds, and he got assists when he could, but his teammates couldn't knock down shots. But to me, in that second half, he proved how good he was. He did everything you'd want. And we're at the point in the fourth quarter, Denver's up 9 points seemingly. And I'm thinking with about 4 minutes left, and I think, okay, this is it. The game's over. Jimmy Butler, who was 2 for 14 shooting, then woke up. He scored 11 straight points for the Heat and ultimately gave them 1 point lead at one point. But that hot stretch was not good enough because in the clutch moments when they needed him, he got caught with good defense. He lost his pivot foot. He had to throw a desperate pass. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope intercepts it. KCP down the stretch made the game-winning three-pointer, and then he knocked down 2 free throws to seal the win. A former champion with the Lakers, he was big he made the first 3 of the game for the Denver Nuggets as well. He was really important last night. He also played big minutes. But Jimmy Butler just wasn't as good as the 2 superstars or superstar and co-star with Jamal Murray in this series. It wasn't there for him. Last night he shot 5 for 18. Not good enough. 2 for 5 from 3, it's pretty good for him, but he could knock down shots consistently. He turned the ball over. He only had 1, but the biggest turnover of the game came from him. Gabe Vincent, 6 points. Again, another meaningless game from him. 3 for 13 from the shooting. Kyle Lowry, 4 for 13, even though I thought he played tough and did what he could again. Duncan Robinson only played 16 minutes. And Cody Zeller played for one. I think he scored 6 points, the Denver Nuggets, when he was on the floor. They torched him. In the end, Denver was bigger, Denver was better, and they won. But the Miami Heat should be upset, in my opinion, that they lost that game. Denver had 14 turnovers. 14 turnovers. That's hard to do. It's hard to be that loose with the basketball. We're not talking about Jaylen Brown here on the Boston Celtics turning the ball over. This is Denver. Jamal Murray had 0 turnovers in Game 4. 0 and 12 assists. He had 6 turnovers last night. He had 6 turnovers. Jokic had 4. He had 4. Aaron Gordon, who led the Nuggets in scoring in Game 4, had 4 points last night. You lose. Bruce Brown, my God, I couldn't believe they kept putting him on the floor for the Denver Nuggets. He went 4 for 14, 2 for 4 from the free throw line, my God, and 0 for 5 from three-point range. You lose a game where the Nuggets went 13 for 23 from the line, 56%. Shaquille O'Neal range shooting free throws as a team last night. That's pathetic. They shot 18% from 3. The Miami Heat had 12 more shots than the Denver Nuggets. They shot 34% as a team. Not good. But you had 12 more shots, you still don't win the game. You even them in offensive rebounds. What happened? The Miami Heat had a great year. They did. They had a great second half of the year, the important year. Regular season, they were an 8 seed. They had to beat the Chicago Bulls to get into the playoffs. They upset the Bucks. To me, that they should have been the favorite over the Knicks, but Knicks are a higher seed. They beat the Knicks, so an upset. And they beat the Boston Celtics in dramatic fashion. And you get to an NBA Finals with Jimmy Butler as your best player. Now, could the series have been different if he was playing at an elite level? Yes, but I still don't think they win. I think at the end of the day, it's very rare where it's not just that the best player wins, but the Denver Nuggets are a better team. If you go down both rosters, start with the center position. I'm taking Jokic over Bam, obviously. I'm taking Jamal Murray over Gabe Vincent. I'm taking KCP over Max Strus. I'm taking Aaron Gordon over... Who plays the 4? Kevin Love, yes. I'm taking him over Kevin Love. Every starting 5 member, I'll take. Maybe not Porter Jr. Maybe not Porter Jr., but I'm taking everybody else in the Denver Nuggets. So, knowing that, plus they have the 2 best players in the series, you're not gonna lose. So the Miami Heat came in knowing that they were at a disadvantage. Miami Heat look at their situation and say, we'd been to the finals in the bubble, and we got to the finals here with Jimmy Butler as our best player and a ragtag group. We can't beat the best teams in basketball, but we know we can get to the finals. So what can we do to propel ourselves? If I'm the Miami Heat, I call Portland about Damian Lillard. The NBA draft is in a week and a half. It's a week from Thursday. I'm not complaining, but the NBA is always on a Thursday, just like the NFL. It works. Not Wednesday. The Portland Trailblazers have the 3rd pick in the draft. What do they want to do with that pick? Is Scoot Henderson going to? Is Brandon Miller going to be available? If you draft Scoot Henderson, who's a guard, doesn't make any sense to keep Damian Lillard. They can't play together. Portland's not going to win. Damian Lillard's been on the record saying he wants to play with Bam. That's his dog. So I call. Say, what do you want for Dame? What can we give you? You might have to give up Bam. That's the bitter irony of the trade, because I'm not sure what Miami has to offer that's truly that enticing. But I'm sure you could put a package together. You don't blow up your team, but I think in these situations, in particular in the NBA, you have to be aware of what's around you. Can you go on another Cinderella run? Unlikely. When the Miami Heat got to the bubble in 2021, or was that 2020? 2020. Yes, 2020. They missed the playoffs the next year. They missed the playoffs after getting to the finals in the bubble. So with that being said, they go finals, miss the playoffs, conference finals, NBA finals. Are you going to miss again? It's hard to say you'll miss the playoffs in the NBA because that's hard. And now there's the play-in, which helps every team. But the Sixers have a new coach. Does James Harden leave Philadelphia? What do they do with that situation? Fred VanVleet, he's a free agent. We're going to talk a little bit about that more tomorrow. But he's leaving Toronto. He declined his player option. He's free to go anywhere. He's a free agent. I think he stays in the Eastern Conference unless he goes to Phoenix. So he's gonna join a good team, and I think he could join the Sixers. So that makes the Sixers a better team. Boston. Boston's been to, again, same situation as Miami. What does Boston do with Jaylen Brown? Do they sign him? Do they trade him? What can they get somebody that can dribble the basketball in the closing moments? Boston will still be a threat because they're always a threat. They're a good team. They're well structured. They're well built. Brad Stevens is a good executive, so Boston will be in the mix. The other teams, to me, there's always a team that takes a jump. I think the Brooklyn Nets, if they get a star, they look like a good team. They have a solid base around them already. All the pieces they got from the Kyrie Irving trade, and then of course the Kevin Durant trade. I like that team. You add a superstar or two to that team, or a superstar and a star player. If you had a Dame Lillard that goes to Brooklyn to play with Mikal Bridges, I think Mikal Bridges can be that number 2 because he's a damn good player. So that's 4 teams there that I think could be better than Miami Heat. Who am I missing? Philadelphia. Toronto's not going to be there. Toronto's not there yet. They're rebuilding. Of course, there's Milwaukee. Giannis, I think he'll be motivated after losing in the first round. The Knicks. What do the Knicks do? Back-to-back years in the postseason, you get to a second round. Can you make a jump? Atlanta was a playoff team, so there are opportunities. I think Orlando could be better next year because I like the nucleus of that team. There's no guarantee you get back, is my point. And if you know you have a good team and you have an opportunity to get Damian Lillard because you know he wants to go to your location, you got to call. You got to see if Portland likes anything that you have to offer. Is there anything there that they would take? You can throw a package together. It doesn't completely blow up your team. But if you had Jimmy Butler and Damian Lillard, you might have something there. You might have to give up Bam to do it, but maybe you can find other center depth around the league. He had his good moments and his bad moments during the playoffs, and in particular during the finals. His shooting's inconsistent, and he misses a lot of easy floaters, bunnies that you'd think he'd knock down. So it would be frustrating watching him and having him, Spoelstra as his coach, being like, why can't you knock that down more consistently? But ultimately, Nikola Jokic, two-time MVP, Finals MVP, NBA champion. He's in all-time great status. And he's only 28. He could win more championships. He could become even a bigger legend than he is currently. So with that possibility, there's a lot of things that can happen for Nikola. Does he build on his legacy? Bruce Brown's a free agent, so he's likely gone from Denver. But Aaron Gordon's under contract. You have Jamal Murray. You have Nikola Jokic. You have Porter Jr. Caldwell Pope. Christian Braun was a rookie, and he played great in the big moments in the playoffs. This Denver team, in my opinion, will be back. They will be a threat for multiple years to come. And it's incumbent on the other teams in the Western Conference, like the Los Angeles Lakers, like the Clippers if they want to get in the mix, the Phoenix Suns with the Durant Booker project. It's on these teams to get better to get onto their level. Because they'll have a target on their back. Jokic has now won a title. He's in that mix. And he is one of the better big men to ever play. He's not Shaq or he's not Hakeem yet or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but he is two-time MVP, Finals MVP, a champion. That's hard to come by. That's not easy to do. And his demeanor, they won the game last night. He goes and shakes the hands of every other person. He doesn't celebrate. It was as if he was going to a dinner party and he was letting them out of the house. Then he gets interviewed and says he's pissed off that the parade's on Thursday because he wants to get back to Serbia. He's one of the most unique superstars in pro sports because he doesn't care about the spotlight. He just wants to play basketball. He doesn't care about becoming MVP. He just plays the game so effectively, and he's one of the best players in the league. By not being compelling, I think he's becoming compelling. You want to hear him interviewed, you want to hear him speak because he's just so not about it, and he can actually give you interesting tidbits by proxy. I think superstars go out of the way to hide their private life or give you a cliche answer. I don't see that with Jokic. I just see a guy that goes, I just don't want to do this. I just want to be me. I want to hang out with my wife and my children. Let me do this. But then through all of it, he keeps playing. They keep winning. So he keeps getting interviewed and he becomes more and more compelling. He's a big bag of milk that you see out there and you go, how the hell is this guy the best player in the NBA? But he is. So credit to the Denver Nuggets and the city of Denver. Colorado Avalanche win the Stanley Cup last year. The Denver Nuggets win the NBA title this year. Good for Russell Wilson for going to every game. Not that you need to see him courtside and make you know that he loves Denver and his whole phony persona. Wait, did I just say that? And also congrats to the Cronkies, owners of the Denver Nuggets, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Colorado Avalanche. 3 titles in 3 years. Domination, Holmes. And they own a lacrosse team as well, and they won a championship. So 4 titles in the last 3 years, something crazy like that for that ownership group. They know who they're hiring, they know what they're doing because they're a successful group, the Cronkies. Keep adding titles. So congratulations to them. But an interesting NBA postseason run. The Denver-Phoenix series was fantastic. Even the Lakers, I thought the Lakers-Nuggets series was really, even though it was a sweep, every game was close. It could have went the other way. So another really good NBA season, and of course, the NBA leads the world in drama. Leads the world in what's going to happen here. Who's getting traded? Who's getting bought out? Who's moving where? So I'm sure the rumor mill, Kyrie Irving, Damian Lillard, James Harden, will all start to percolate more and more as the days go by, and we'll be sure to follow it here on To the Point. The Toronto Raptors finally have a new coach. They were out in early April, and it took them nearly 2 months to hire a new head coach, but they've done it. They hired Darko Marjovic. I might be pronouncing that wrong. It's a tricky last name. As the team's next head coach. He was the assistant coach of the Memphis Grizzlies the last 2 years. And he is 45 years old, and it's his first time as a head coach in the NBA. Now, he's got some good things about him. He fought his way to be here. He earned his stripes as assistant. He coached overseas. He coached in the G League. And now he gets his first opportunity. I can read his credentials. You don't know much about him. And to be fair to the situation, but I believe that you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. You have to give him a look because nobody knew who Nick Nurse was before he became the head coach of the Toronto Raptors. Now, they're in different situations. Nick Nurse was joining a team that was in the conference finals, second round, and couldn't get over the hump. And then as soon as he got hired, they traded for Kawhi Leonard. So that's a very different circumstance, and it put him in a position to win a championship and change his life and change the trajectory of his career. Darko is coming into the situation, in my opinion, knowing that this team is not going to be very good. The Raptors, Fred VanVleet is not going to be in Toronto next year. He's a champion. He'll be loved by the organization forever. He's gone. Pascal Siakam, Toronto Raptors best player. However, he's a good player that is not good enough to be the best player on a championship team. So ergo, if he's your best player, you are not a championship contender. OG Anunoby, a good 3-and-D defender, I think will be moved this offseason. The problem with the NBA and with the Raptors situation is how bad can you get? Because every year the Detroit Pistons suck. That's a fact. They've sucked since about 2015. Terrible. They won 17 games last year. The Raptors won half their games. They won 41. Charlotte won 27. Orlando 34. I think they'll have more. Wizards, are they going to blow it up? They should. Will they? So the Raptors can make moves. They're going to get worse by proxy. Fred VanVleet leaving. Maybe you trade OG Anunoby. But my thought is, how bad can you get? Pascal Siakam last year led the team in points per game, 22.8. So let's say 23. Rebounds, 7.2 and 5.8 assists per game. Also led them in steals. So he was the focal point of their team. Scotty Barnes will be back with the Raptors, his third year, coming off a down sophomore slump. Pirtle, they re-signed after trading for him. Anunoby, Siakam, Gary Trent, who knows? The team is adequate, but it's not anything scary. It's not a team that you worry about. Do I think the Raptors can ever be better than Milwaukee? No. Boston? No. Philly? No. Cleveland? No. New York? No. Brooklyn? No. Atlanta? Probably not. Miami? No. And that's every playoff team. So you're in the play-in situation again. The Raptors don't have a team where you add a superstar to the bunch and you win a championship. They just aren't. And in my mind, there's not a Kawhi Leonard out there that you could just scoop and put on this team. Kyrie Irving is not coming to Toronto. Joel Embiid is not demanded to trade. Damian Lillard is not being traded to the Toronto Raptors. So it's a situation where, do you blow it up? Do you get a bunch of prospects for these players? And I think the Toronto Raptors in a similar situation to the Boston Celtics of about 2011, 2012. If you recall, they won a title in 08. Kevin Garnett, anything is possible. The big three Celtics, the first super team, and they only won one title because they failed. It might sound harsh, but that's just to me a fact. They lost in 09 to Kobe, and then they got old. And the Boston Celtics management was smart enough to notice this team's getting old. We're not in a championship window anymore. And we're a team that wants to be competitive as often as we can. So they traded Garnett, and they traded Ray Allen, and they traded Rondo and Paul Pierce, and a bunch of them ended up in Brooklyn. And they ended up getting Jason Tatum with the 3rd overall pick. They ended up getting Jaylen Brown. They drafted Grant Williams, Rob Williams, and they've been a title contender since about 2018 when Jason Tatum was just a baby playing LeBron in Cleveland. So they had the IQ to do it, and they made smart selections. The Boston Celtics didn't build a super team. They didn't go and get a bunch of players from other teams and try to do it that way. To me, it's a myth that small market teams can't win a title because Denver's a small market. They just won. The Raptors won a title differently, but they did it. I think you can draft and develop and win a championship. I do. The New Orleans Pelicans, if Zion stopped fooling around with porn stars and figured out his nutrition and Brandon Ingram was healthy, I think the New Orleans Pelicans would be a perennial playoff team and be competing for championships right now. It just didn't go their way. So Darko could be a bridge coach for the Raptors while they tank, while they trade away assets and get a bunch of stuff. Because to me, Pascal Siakam is a piece a bunch of teams around the league would love because teams need wings. He can play the 3, he can play the 4. He'd be a great addition in Milwaukee because I'd rather have Siakam than Middleton, particular health. Cleveland could certainly use a Pascal Siakam. Going to make the money work. The Knicks, if you want to trade him in the Eastern Conference. The Memphis Grizzlies with Dylan Brooks leaving town. I think that would be. They talked about OG Anunoby going to Memphis at the trade deadline. I think that would work. Sacramento, my Kings. I think he'd be in high demand if teams knew he was available. But now it's on Webster and Masai Ujiri to go that route or just keep kicking around the same team that isn't going to go anywhere. You want Scotty Barnes to get better, yes. You want him to continue to get better, not have the season he did last year. Have more confidence and be in better shape, quite frankly. But even if Scotty Barnes gets to a level, I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar in the NBA. If he gets to Pascal Siakam's level and you have a Pascal and a Scotty Barnes and an OG, I don't think you're not winning a title. And teams have to be aware of it. I talk all the time about not being afraid to tank. Not being afraid to say, we're not going to win here. And I realize it's difficult because for general managers, you are signaling to your owner, I screwed up my job a little bit. We're not a good enough team. We need to get rid of the good pieces we have so we can hopefully get better pieces later. It's a tough game. Because the owner might say, well, I don't trust you. You already got me pieces that aren't working. Why would I allow you to get me new ones? Fair point. If you have enough trust, which I think Masai Ujiri does with Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, and Bobby Webster, who's been tied with Masai Ujiri at the hip, they have the trust of the organization. I think they can do this. And go out there and retool it for a few years and say, hey, guess what? In 3 years, we'll be competitive. We'll be a contender again. But the fans aren't stoked about going to a playing game and losing to the Chicago Bulls. They're not stoked about that. Because you get one game of playoff revenue. You're not making all that much money. I mean, the Raptors' last game was on April 8th. So it's May, June. It's in 2 months, no revenue for the Toronto Raptors. You don't get any playoff gates, none of that. Denver, Miami, they've gotten good money from hosting playoff games, selling revenue, memorabilia, all that shit. You take the hit. If you're the Raptors, you got to hope Detroit, Charlotte, some of these pieces they're drafting finally get better. Finally turn out, and maybe it's your time to sink to the bottom. I think the Bulls want to get down there with you because they're going nowhere fast. But it's a situation I would look into because being mediocre is the worst position you can be in sports. I would rather suck than be mediocre. Because we are good enough to make the playoffs, but we're never, ever going to be good enough to win a championship. And a superstar addition to this Raptors team, you're not winning. Because with the collective bargaining agreement and the new way of the NBA, it's not just get 3 superstars and put them together. The Big Three era is dead. Because Big Threes aren't going to win. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant didn't win the title. Denver had 2 superstar-type players. They won the championship. Last year, the Golden State Warriors, Klay Thompson was no superstar. He's had 2 horrific injuries to his knee. Draymond Green's an older guy. He's not a superstar. It was Steph Curry playing at an elite level, Draymond playing great defensively down the stretch, and a good damn team around him filling in. You need 2 really good players, 1 superstar, and a great team. It's shifting more towards the NHL model where the best team wins. The team that comes together the best, that has the best gel, that figures out how to play together, that complements one another, those are teams that are winning. The NBA of old, where it's just superstars, it's just about the flash, that era is over. That's not the way it works anymore. So if they had a superstar on this Raptors roster, I wouldn't be pitching this. Because I'd say, okay, find another star player and then build around it. But you look at Milwaukee. They got a superstar in Giannis. They got Drew Holiday. They have better pieces around them. They can win. I still look at that series against the Heat, and that's one of the worst series losses ever because they were such a good team. I thought they're well built. I thought they had a good team. I like their bench pieces, but they're out in the first round. Boston had 2 star players. Their reserves weren't good enough. Plus, they didn't have somebody who could distribute the basketball. Nobody that can dribble. Tatum and Brown in the clutch moments can't be dribbling. They can't be setting up the offense because they're not good at it. So you need to be aware of that. But just having 3 superstars on a team and saying, okay, good luck beating us. We're better than you now. The Brooklyn Nets didn't win any championships. James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, they didn't get past the second fucking round. The entirety of their time together in Brooklyn. So that's what we're looking at here. It's an interesting offseason for a bunch of teams in the way they want to approach this. Because the problem is, I think the first team that signals that they're tanking, retooling everyone, the lawyers speak you want to put on it now because you can't say tanking because the league gets upset, or then your fans, so you got to pretend to your fans that you care even though that you don't. Whoever fires that first shot will be in the catbird seat, will be in the best situation. Because the best organizations are the organizations that know who they are and have a set plan and don't deviate. Are you in or are you out? When you put your hand in the cookie jar, are you going to take it or are you not? You need to be pot committed to the decision. When you're a kid, you know you're going to take the cookie. That's why kids, in this instance, they know what they're doing. I'm going to steal it. I'm not allowed to have a cookie. I'm going to eat it anyway. I'm going to lie about this. Organizations need to have a kid mentality. And I can't even believe I'm mentioning kids because I hate them. But kids are stupid enough to not know what they're doing. So, okay, I'm not allowed to steal the cookie. Of course I'm going to steal the cookie. I'm a kid. I'm an adolescent. I hate authority. We also have a little kid in us. We all hate authority. But they're pot committed to the decision. Organizations, the worst ones, aren't pot committed. Are we here or are we here? Am I a good team that can compete or am I a team that sucks? I'd want to be on either end of the spectrum. Because not every team on the right end of the spectrum winning is going to, obviously. One team wins. It's a bitter sport. Eventually, sometimes you don't win. The Boston Bruins record-setting season, they don't win the championship. But they knew who they were. They were pot committed. I don't blame them. They failed. It happens. Toronto, all these teams, they committed to that. Chicago, they committed the other way. We suck. We suck. Let's trade away these pieces so we can get Connor Bedard. Check. These Phillies, Pittsburghs, these teams in the middle, don't be here. Be over here if you're watching me on video. Be over here or be over here. Don't be in the middle. Have your decision, and that's in every sport. But in particular in the NBA and in the NHL, more than the NFL, because the NFL is so different. Because if you draft a quarterback, you get offensive line help, you can turn it around quick. Look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Boston Celtics were kind of like the Jaguars, but even more successful, where they had won a title in 08, 09, get to the finals. They get to the finals in 10 too, maybe? Because the Lakers went back-to-back, I believe. I forget who they beat in 2010. I'll remember that down the line. But you get to the 2010 finals, and then you say, okay, we're getting old here. We're getting broken down. We're not going to win. So we need to do something. It's about decisions, knowing your organization, and having a set plan. Because this thought of we're going to compete and see what happens, I don't like that plan. Shit can happen during the season, and best player can blow his knee out, then you're fucked. But at least you had a set plan before. Like the Texas Rangers, they had a plan. We're signing all these players to big money because we want to win a championship. And were all the signings smart? No. But we're going to give Jacob deGrom way more money than we should because we feel we need to win a championship in Texas because we want to get people in the stands and we want people to believe that we're a big market organization. They're not. But again, do what you got to do to tell people, to make yourself feel better. They did that. But that's my big soliloquy on that. Goes from the Raptors, just bigger picture is have a set plan and stick to it. Don't deviate. Have that plan. Nurture it, build it up. But the Raptors have a new coach. Speaking, I was just talking about the Texas Rangers. Let's go to baseball. I was going to go to hockey. Let's go to baseball first. I'll tell you, this wasn't on the docket right away, but I mentioned the Texas Rangers because I was watching the Texas Rangers a little bit last night. Playing the LA Angels of Anaheim. Texas is a very good team. They are multiple games over 500. They're 41-24, having a very productive season. Jacob deGrom just had Tommy John surgery, so I think there's a little bit of panic in Texas. They lost 2 or 3 to the Rays, no shame there. They're playing the Angels. Shohei Ohtani, he's something else, isn't he? His pitching's been up and down this season. He's been battling a little bit, having a mixed bag of success. But in 2023, he's got a 3.8 wins above replacement, 75 hits, 20 home runs, 291 batting average. 20 home runs now leads Major League Baseball because last night in Texas, he hit 2 home runs, had 4 RBIs, and he walked. Went 2 for 4, and he surpassed Aaron Judge for the most home runs in baseball, including hitting a 459-foot homer in Globe Life Field. This dude is simply incredible. Simply incredible. There's nothing he can't do. Again, he pitches, he has a 3.32 ERA, which isn't bad, by the way. But he had such a great start to the season. He's had the last 3 starts, he's got 10 earned runs. So he's had some struggles, certainly. After a 2.33 ERA last year, which is just sublime. But he's pitching well, and he's the single reason the Los Angeles Angels are 6 games over 500. Mike Trout is having a tough start to the year, but the Angels are a game back of the Houston Astros for the last wildcard spot. They're in the same division. They're only half a game back of the Toronto Blue Jays. And what I will say is that normally the Angels are out of it by now. It's June. The Angels are normally done playing meaningful baseball by about mid-May, and we're June 13th today, and we're still talking about the Angels. And yes, I'm mentioning Shohei Ohtani, but they're an interesting story. And he's always interesting because he's a unicorn. The dude's a freak of nature. He's, to me, still the best player in baseball, maybe other than Aaron Judge. But the way he does it, he's better than Aaron Judge. Not to mention the Angels, they're only a couple games back of the New York Yankees. I don't know where he's going to go. The way this season is going, he won't be traded at the trade deadline. I don't think that Artie Moreno, the owner of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, will want to trade him because it tells your fan base that you're selling. You don't think you can re-sign him. And I think you want to offer him a big sum of money in the offseason and try to lure him to come back. Play the next decade of his career in Los Angeles. He might do that. I just think he has a better chance of doing it in a Dodger uniform than in an Angels uniform. But that's for November. For right now, this dude is much watch television. He's, again, leading MLB in home runs. It's June. He hits farther home runs than anybody. When he hits one, it is gone beyond belief. He's starting to speak more English. You see his person. He had a bat flip on the one he hit in the 12th last night. To me, he's just a star. He's becoming a more and more marketable star. He did great at the World Baseball Classic. He had that awesome moment. He's just, to me, he's on top of the sports world, and he's rising when it comes to just marketable people. And when you see him, you know who he is. That's Shohei Ohtani. He's that person for baseball. And Aaron Judge has missed some time because he hurt his foot running into the wall at Dodger Stadium. But it would be phenomenal for baseball this year if you could see a home run race between Judge and Ohtani. The two mashers. The two guys that are really on top of the landscape. Luis Ariz is hitting .391 for the Miami Marlins. That's a great story, but again, he's got 91 hits, which is tied for most in Major League Baseball with Bo Bichette, oddly enough. You got Ohtani, Judge, Pete Alonso, another guy who's injured right now, who hits a lot of home runs. Jorge Soler has 19 for the suddenly red-hot Miami Marlins. But look, Yordan Alvarez is injured currently for Houston. Mookie Betts is injured currently. Baseball, the game has improved. I think the overall product is better. Pitch clock, I like all of it. But to me, you need some stars to emerge. You need more names. You need more personalities. Because Red Sox, Yankees isn't really doing it anymore because the Red Sox don't have a marketable player that you really think of. Okay, Rafi Devers. Name one after him. The Yankees are struggling. The Mets, at this point in the season, the New York Mets, you talk about a guy who's panicking, Steve Cohen. The Mets are 31-35. They are 9 games back of the Atlanta Braves. They are 7 games back of the Miami Marlins for second. To know Pete Alonso, Verlander, Scherzer, these guys could be out of the postseason. Maybe there's interest if you see the Mets fail. Maybe that creates a storyline. St. Louis Cardinals stink. They still stink. They're 13 games below 500. They're not turning around this season. You love seeing the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are the story in baseball. They won again last night, beating the Phillies. Corbin Carroll's a rookie. He's batting .313. He's got 13 home runs. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. has been fantastic. But to me, Major League Baseball, you need to start producing some more stars. That's one thing for me. Because I think there's a lot of teams around baseball that are really good, but it's a faceless team. You look at the Rays, who do you think about? You can't name me one guy. You look at Baltimore, who would it be? Again, I don't think you have a name. The Yankees, it would be Aaron Judge. There you go. The Blue Jays, most people would say Vlad Guerrero Jr., but it wouldn't be Vlad Guerrero Jr. this year because he's playing he's playing horrible. Not horrible, that's harsh. But he hasn't hit a home run at home, and it's June. He's got 9 homers on the season, and he's supposed to be a power bat. Bat .283. Boston, faceless team. Minnesota, who? Carlos Correa? Okay, he's batting what? He's struggling this year, about .215 this year. He had a good series against the Blue Jays. .217. Wow. Faceless team. Cleveland, Jose Ramirez, but that's a deep cut for me. Chicago, faceless team. Detroit Tigers, the answer that you give is Miguel Cabrera. He's 40 years old and he barely plays. Kansas City, get off it. Texas, Corey Seager, I suppose. Houston, Jose Altuve, I'll give them that. Angels, of course, Altuve. Seattle, Julio. But you go through these teams, there's a lot of great teams out there, but just they're faceless. Diamondbacks are hot. The Miami Marlins are having a great start to the season. But is that marketable? Is that working? And for baseball, the NBA is winding down. The NHL could be over tonight. It's incumbent on you to put yourself in a situation to have a good summer when it comes to viewership and when it comes to marketability and people caring about the sport. Because media at large is not going to do it. The mass media, ESPN, Turner, over here, TSN Sportsnet, they care about the teams they cover. ESPN will care about the Yankees. They'll put on every Yankees Red Sox game. And they'll care about the Mets and they'll care about the Dodgers. Up here in Canada, they'll care about the Blue Jays and that's it. They don't give a shit about any other team. Every Blue Jays game's on TV. Every other game, you can hardly get another team to be on television. So you got to go out of your way to get the MLB package, which I do, because I like baseball. But again, I'm not everybody. So I just think the marketing of this sport is something they need to work on. And getting, these interviews with players during games that they do on ESPN on Sunday Night Baseball is smart. That's a good way to do it. Kyle Schwarber was fun. I heard him interviewed. Who was on last week? Was it the Red Sox game? I think it was the Red Sox game. Enrique Hernandez might have been interviewed during that game. But you need to do that kind of stuff. There needs to be interaction. There needs to be some fun stuff. Because you're relying on people to care about the Arizona Diamondbacks, when I don't think people have cared about the Arizona Diamondbacks since 2001. Because that was the last time they were in the World Series. And the last time you could argue they were relevant. Sticking to baseball is a different topic. On Friday, and this is a little past due, I wanted to talk about this. The Toronto Blue Jays on Friday designated Anthony Bass for assignment. Anthony Bass had an ERA over 4 at the time. But if you're not aware, Anthony Bass spoke up about Pride Month and how he was, he's religious and he doesn't agree with it, and it shouldn't be everywhere, and you shouldn't have to, you shouldn't have to celebrate it if you don't want to, this, that, and the other major league fields. He had to come out and he released a statement that was written by a lawyer or by the team. But then he did sensitivity training or something. And then he announced he was going to be catching the first pitch of Pride Night, which is Friday night in Toronto. But Friday morning before Pride Night, he was designated for assignment, meaning he would not be taking part in the festivities and the Blue Jays would be moving on without him. He's 35 years old. He's not a key part of the team, and they could have gotten rid of him for other reasons, performance-based. But because all of this was going down, that's not the way optically it looks. Now, do I agree with Anthony Bass's overall point of view? No. Of course not. I don't agree with his stance on, gay people. I don't agree with him, citing religious beliefs. I think that's a cop-out for a lot of this stuff. And at the end of the day, he should have shut up about it. Here's the thing. I don't think that you should have the right to get rid of somebody off a team or a business if they are against something that you believe in. Because where do you draw the line? For instance, I'm going to give you an example from my life. I am an atheist. I don't believe in God. So if I'm working for somebody and they are Catholic and they hear that I'm an atheist, do they have the right to fire me? If I'm a good employee, if I'm doing the job, if I tell them, hey, I'm an atheist and I don't believe in God, do they have the right to tell me, hey, you're fired? I think you're setting a dangerous precedent, because people, at the end of the day, we all have different things that we agree with, all different things that we relate to. And as the world gets more and more wide with opinions and with these nights, eventually you're going to run into something and be like, I don't agree with this. As good a person as you were that fired the person that, didn't agree with religion or wasn't on your side, where does it end? Where does it end with all of this? Here's my solution. I would end every sponsored night. Pride night, Jersey night, whatever it is. There's a bunch of every year there's a bunch of different stuff. Here's what you can keep. Military Appreciation Day. Because if you're not with the military, okay, stay home. I don't know what to tell you. If you're anti-military, then you really got some problems. So if you're anti-military, you can keep that, and you can keep breast cancer awareness. Because if you were pro-cancer, go fuck yourself. That's from me. That's an opinion, that's just me stating a fact. So if you're pro-cancer and you hate the military, so okay, I'm sorry, you can stay home that night. But why is a pride night necessary? It isn't. And this is not just about the LGBTQ community. There's other nights that have these conflicts. Why have them? Ivan Provorov, I disagree with this position. Anthony Bass, I disagree with this position. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have the right to a position. That is democracy. That is society where we all have a voice. And because your voice is different from mine, he's penalized. I disagree with that. I disagree with that because I am fine with other people who believe in God. My mother, my sister, they go to church, and I love that for them because they enjoy it. And they can have that, and they can think of, whatever they do when they go there. I sit home with Dad and we watch King of the Hill, jokingly, but we're not going. So that you can live in a society. My household, you have differing opinions, but it doesn't all have to, you don't need to push other people's opinion away to boost and augment your own. That's my position here. For organizations, you want calm. You want no bad PR. So eliminate these nights. Because I don't know the analytics, but I don't think Pride Night brings the homosexual LGBTQ community to games, because I think those communities are going to games already if they love the sport. If you love hockey, are you only going to go on Pride Night? I don't think so, because you love the sport. If you got season tickets and you're gay, guess what? You're going to the games. I just think you're setting a precedent that is dangerous, because so many people have differing opinions on everything. Okay, you're a Republican. I'm a Democrat. You're fired. Just think about this, folks. It's really not that difficult. It's not that different. It really isn't. And again, I disagree with these people, but I can understand it. Here's another example. In this country, people have guns to hunt. Do I think they need guns in their home? No, I don't. Because I'm as anti-gun as anybody I've ever met. I hate them. I don't see a point to guns. I think they're unnecessary. I don't want them. However, I have multiple friends who hunt that have guns in their homes that could be dangerous, because we see what's happening in the US every other fucking day. But do I say, hey, you can't have a gun, I'm not friends with you because you go out there and you have guns in your home? No. Because I think if you have enough common sense, common sense would be great if it was more common, we'd all be in a better situation. But if I'm a pro sports team, if I'm the Philadelphia Flyers after seeing Provorov, if I'm seeing Anthony Bass, Mark Stahl, Eric Stahl, these players are vilified for having a different opinion. Now, do I think the fact that they don't support gay people is a really bad position? Yes, I do. Because it's not a choice. It's how you were born. But that's their position. And I don't think they should be unwilling to have that position just because you think that they should have your opinion. We all got different opinions on multiple things. There's a lot of very interesting, there's a lot of dynamics to life. There's religion, there's politics, There's sports teams. Oh, I like the Leafs. I like the Canadians. You're fired. Think about it. It's not all that different. It really isn't, because it's opinion. At the end of the day, it's all opinion. And it's you augmenting yours because somebody else has a differing one to you. Sports teams, end the night. End Lego night, end Pride night, and just host events. Or keep Lego night and keep Batman night, whatever you're doing, and get rid of the controversial ones. Because it does you no good. And maybe I'm wrong, which I have been before, but I really don't think that organizations, that fans are going to events because it's Pride night. I don't think people are saying, I have to get to the rink tonight because it's Pride night. I don't think the LGBTQ community thinks of it that way. If you're a pro sports fan, you go to the game because you can afford the tickets or you have access to the tickets. Not because there's a certain night that is Pride night. If kids get in free, that's a different situation because kids are a different demographic. And I don't think anybody other than me will be pissed off that there's a whole bunch of kids in the rink screaming behind me because I hate kids. But most people like kids, enjoy their presence, like having them around. So piss me off as a consumer because I'm going to come back. But think about in totality, think about team harmony, think about what the perception will be. Because our landscape in the world is changing by the minute. And having different thoughts, having acceptance over multiple different things is necessary, but not even dipping your foot in the pool is a solution to staying away from the drama. Think about that solution. Pro sports leagues. That's for free. I hope you enjoyed that because I really thought about that yesterday. Thinking about the Bass situation. It's interesting. It's easy to say the Blue Jays screwed it up. They did. They screwed it up, but that was an easy point of view. I want to get to a bigger topic, a more wider range discussion on what's happening here. What happened with the Blue Jays? Could have been handled differently. Would Anthony Bass still be employed if he didn't say that? Yes. He also needs to learn. With the way it is right now, there are Pride nights. Shut up. Shut up. People didn't want to get the vaccine. They got it or they didn't. But I think the people that didn't, a lot of them didn't pipe up about it all the time. They accepted, they kept their position, they moved on with their life. I respect that. No problem with that. With this, the fact that you have to pipe in, the fact that you have to say something, be aware of your situation. Be aware of your situation. Be aware of your surroundings. Two important things in life. He wasn't. He pays the price. It didn't have to come to this. But it did. And I think teams should really look at the situation and say, what is the gain? What are the gains are we getting from having these sponsored, controversial nights? Because if the opinion is they shouldn't be controversial, I agree. But they are. Because to get back to the emphasis of our conversation, the title, people do have different opinions. And you have to be willing to not accept them, but you need to be willing to deal with them and coexist. Because everybody's got a different thought. People have different opinions. We all have friends, we all have family that have different thoughts than us. And that's a good thing, because if we all were the same people, life would be pretty fucking boring. Let's move to hockey. Stanley Cup Final, Game 5, tonight. Who is going to win this game? I picked Vegas in 6, so that would mean I had Florida winning 2 games in the series. I gotta tell you, I'm way less confident about that right now. The Heat lose last night, South Florida takes a hit, and it feels like the Panthers are going to bow out as well. Kachuk is hurt, Montour is banged up, and again, Vegas is a better team. They're more well constructed. The Panthers are just like the Heat, where they battered their way to get here, and they're still fighting, but they're hanging on by a thread. So, the Vegas Golden Knights are the favorite tonight, minus 188 money line on FanDuel, minus 1.5 on the spread. Looking at anytime goal scores tonight, Jonathan Marchessault plus 150 did not score a goal for the first time in 13 games in Game 4. Jack Eichel plus 160. You have Verhaeghe, Kachuk, Stevenson. Might be a good bet at plus 260 after having 2 in Game 4. So, again, I picked Florida. I picked Vegas in 6. I don't want to back off that position, but the way Florida is playing, like I talked yesterday with their spacing, their defensive transitions, it just looks like they've met their maker. Like they're playing a better team that's more structured, that has more options, and more ways to beat them. So I would be surprised if Vegas, I think we'll see the NBA and the NHL seasons wrap up back-to-back nights. Vegas wins a Stanley Cup in Vegas. Washington won it back in the day in 2018. To be the second championship celebrated in Vegas proper. And I think Jonathan Marchessault wins the Conn Smythe Trophy. And I'm thinking Mark Stone will get the cup first because he's the captain. Who does he give it to? Can you bet on that on FanDuel? That's an interesting little prop. No. Series spreads, correct score. That would be something I'd bet on. I honestly would, because who would get the cup first? Any thoughts on that, everybody? I'm trying to think of veterans on the team. William Karlsson's been there since day one. Riley Smith, Marchessault. Petrangelo's already won a cup, so he won't get it. I don't think it'll be Eichel. Aiden Hill, no. Probably Marchessault, in particular if he wins the Conn Smythe. That helps his chances, I would think. Barbashev's won a cup. Chandler Stevenson's won a cup. There's no obvious older player. Phil Kessel's a black ace, but he's won 2 cups, so it doesn't need to go to him. If you could make this bet, if you can find that prop, I'd put it on Marchessault, I believe, because he's been there since day one. And if he wins the Conn Smythe, he deserves it. 32 years old, he's been in the league a long time. That's my guess. But normally, I remember in St. Louis, I think Chris Thorburn got it second. He was a black ace the entire postseason, but he played in Winnipeg for a long time. He was like 37 years old. He got the cup. He didn't even dress for any of the games, but he came out with gear on. He got the cup. Last year, It was Colorado. I think Eric Johnson got it from McKinnon, maybe. Or it was Landeskog. Landeskog gave it to Eric Johnson, got it quick. Yeah, Eric was there a long time, battled his way through. So that's always nice to see who gets it, and that's interesting. But I think my prediction will be wrong. To me, Vegas is just too strong. They're playing too well, too confident. Florida's too banged up to make it interesting. So I'm going with Vegas tonight. The Calgary Flames have hired Ryan Huska as the team's next head coach. He was the assistant down in Stockton the last number of years. Now the Calgary Wranglers. He's in his mid-40s. He's another guy with lots of experience, and I think at the end of the day, he is cheap. They got to play Daryl Sutter $4 million over the next 2 years to not coach. I think Gerard Gallant would want $3 to $4 million a year. I don't think they want to pay $7-8 million for coaches. I think Huska, first timer, maybe got $1 million from the Calgary Flames. So it keeps that number down, more manageable for the teams. And, Calgary goes in with a new GM, Craig Conroy, who worked down the American League, so he knows Ryan Huska. They had Ryan Huska, who was coaching the American League team. So it's a little bit of musical chairs where you bring in the guys who were at the kids' table, and now they're running the whole thing. The Flames are certainly a team that can have the biggest transition next year from a horrible season to a good one. Because I don't think Jonathan Huberdeau will be as bad as he was this year. It's impossible for him to be that poor. I think Kadri will be better. You're going to move out Lucic. Maybe Toffoli's not on the roster. They got some decisions to make in net because they have a really good goaltender in the American League, Dustin Wolf, who's won the MVP the last 2 years in the American League. He's sitting there. You have Dan Vladar and Jacob Markstrom signed going into next year. So decisions to make with goaltending. I always look at their defense score as something that could be improved. But I think this team has the possibility to be a whole lot better. And with a new coach bump, with Daryl Sutter not being there, maybe this is the solution. This is a coach that Huberdeau will like better. He won't be as hard-nosed. You just got to hope that this team doesn't take it too nonchalant, that they just feel they can do whatever they want with this first-time head coach. So it's on him to establish that boundary and to play this perfectly. But it's an interesting hire. As we currently sit here, the Toronto Maple Leafs haven't made an announcement on a head coach yet, so that would signal to me that they're going to keep Sheldon Keefe, and I would think you have to re-sign him. He's not going to be a lame duck again. And we just got some breaking news that the New York Rangers have hired Peter Laviolette as the team's next head coach. So that's finally done. So it looks like every situation has been rectified at this point. I'll react more to Laviolette tomorrow as I get the details and things of that nature. But I'm just seeing it here. Let's see. Nothing new here on. I thought I just saw Peter Laviolette name. Nothing new, but I thought I just saw that, but I could be wrong. But maybe that was a false report. Maybe that's not. But there was rumors about that Laviolette was going to be the next head coach. Oh, he is. Okay, so that is true. He is the new head coach of the New York Rangers. leaving the Washington Capitals, so staying in the division. Has won a Stanley Cup before, so he's got that pedigree like I thought the Rangers would want. And actually, Patrick Waugh officially stepped down from the Ramparts, and he said today that he got no interest from NHL teams. He said absolutely none. So it doesn't look like he's leaving. He's going to be joining the NHL anytime soon. But Laviolette is with the Rangers. Huska's with the Flames. So lots of movement in the NHL. Quickly, there's NHL draft buzz starting to happen. Craig Button released his list yesterday. The number 4 ranked prospect in his pool is Matvei Michkov. He is a Russian. He's got one of the best shots in the draft, an elite shot. That's what scouts say about him, and I've seen him play, and he does. And he's in a unique position. He is signed in Russia for the next 2 to 3 years. It's undetermined, but it's 2-3 years. So teams are now looking at him saying, well, we can't draft this guy because he's only going to come over in 2 to 3 years. And he's Russian. People don't want to say that, but again, that's part of this narrative. Here's the thing, guys. These players, how many players play in the NHL in 1 year, 2 years? It takes time, right? Logan Cooley went 3rd overall to Arizona. Went back to college, played last year. Going back to college this year, so that's 2 years he could have played in the NHL, choosing not to. So if he plays, say he plays next year, that means he'll play in year 3, technically, of his eligibility or of when he could have started playing pro hockey. So that would be a year earlier than Matvei Michkov. Owen Power missed a year after going 1st overall, went back to school. Ken Johnson went back to school. Not everybody starts after the first year. Multiple people go back to junior. You play 2 to 3 years, and eventually you get into the league. But this thought of, well, it's such a high pick, you need to select a guy that can play in the NHL right away is Bubkiss. Bubkiss. The Montreal Canadiens pick 5, I believe. If he's there at 5 and they don't draft him, they should fire everybody. This kid is a star. To me, if he wasn't Russian and he didn't have this contract, he would be in discussion to go 2nd overall. Ahead of Fantilli because of the upside, because of the offensive creativity, and just the superstar qualities that he possesses. Kirill Kaprizov played 4 years in Russia and then came over at 23, I believe. 23 years old, he came over to the NHL, and now he's a stud and he's a superstar. Was it worth it for Minnesota? I think so. And they drafted him, by the way. But this thought, we can't take him because it's too long and he's going to be over there. We need him. No, you don't need him right away. You know why? Because you're picking him that high, which means your team stinks. You're not going to be good right away. With this player, you're not making the playoffs the next year. So use your head. 4 or 5, it's an easy pick. And to me, he's a better player than Leo Carlsson. But I know, and we all know, that the Columbus Blue Jackets at 3 will never pick this player because they believe they can win the Stanley Cup next year after seeing all the moves they've made lately. But this overall conversation of this guy, oh, we can't take him. It's going to take too long for him to get to North America. Yada, yada. It's bullshit is what it is. And is putting down this player for no good reason. People are rising in the rankings I like too. Dalibor Dvorsky, he's a player from Slovakia. I like him. Sandin Pellikka, by far to me the best defenseman in the draft out of Sweden. They're all rising in the rankings. I'm cool with that in Craig Button's rankings. But this guy, okay, we can't take him because he's Russian in his contract? Bullshit. Guess what? You're picking hot. You suck. You stink, and you're not going to be good right away. Let him play over there, get better, come over, and be 3 years older, 3 years more mature, and be what Kaprizov is. Wouldn't that be great? It can happen to you, but it requires patience. Have some. I just read that story and it boggles me that it's just, oh, well, we can't take him because we need him. He needs to wait. We need him this year, this, that, and the other. Again, over the last 5 years, on average, 2 players play the entire season in the NHL from a draft class in their rookie year. 2. That's it. Everybody else goes back. You got to play the whole year, by the way. Dylan Guenther didn't play the whole year this year. Brad Lambert didn't play the whole year. You go back to junior. Shane Wright, remember Shane Wright? Didn't go the whole year. All these guys from this draft class, are they all going to be playing in the NHL next year? I don't think so. A lot of them are going to be in the American League. What's the difference between the American League and playing in Russia? You could argue Russia has a better league. Be better for them than playing in the American League. Come on. Anyway, I want to get that off my chest because it's stupid and it just angered me. So, quick CFL recap from the weekend. Hamilton, Bo Levi Mitchell's first game at the club. The game was close because of their special teams, but he does not have a connection with his receivers yet. That'll come with time. However, I did think his arm looked good. He looked more set than he was last year. The Hamilton defense needs to come alive. But again, Zach Collaros, he's the best player in the CFL. He had 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. He looked like the MOP. Dembski, hell of a player again. You go to they go Bailey, they can go Dembski. They got Dalton Schoen. Still, Winnipeg is still the best team in the CFL. Again, it's 1 week, but that team still looks really strong. That defense was great. It's just their special teams that kept the game close. It wasn't that the fact that Hamilton was putting up points. But impressive start for Winnipeg. I want to see what Bo Levi Mitchell looks like this week when he plays the Grey Cup champions with Argonauts home opener Sunday night. Red Blacks. Ouch. Again, they don't have their starting quarterback yet, but Nick Arbaugh, it doesn't matter. The Red Blacks have been a rough team, have been struggling for a while here. They're trying to find themselves. They're trying to get an identity. I don't think they have one yet. So just they need to get it together. They lose to the Alouettes. Cody Fajardo won his first start with the Alouettes. He looked okay. Good, not great, I would say. Montreal does have some good offensive pieces, but a tight game nonetheless. I got this wrong last week. The Edmonton Elks have not won a home game since 2019. They had 3 plays inside the 1 to score a touchdown to beat the Rough Riders. They got stuffed 3 times. They lose again. That's a game they should have won. Rough Riders looked rough. Pardon the pun. Their defense looks strong. Offensively, they still got to work out some kinks. Trevor Harris got roughed up a little bit at the end of the game. But you're still it's 1 week. You're still trying to figure out these teams. And my biggest thing is, why didn't the Argos play? Grey Cup champions, they don't play week 1. Makes no sense to me. And they're playing Sunday night this week. I think that's a miss by the CFL. I think that's bad scheduling. Sunday at 8 o'clock, I don't think that's the right time to have them kick off their season. You have multiple teams with 2 games before they play 1. Stupid. I agree, Hamilton, Toronto. I don't agree having it on a Sunday night at 8. Just a thought. Just a thought. I could be wrong, but I'm not on this situation. Tomorrow on the program, what are we going to get into? We'll recap the game tonight, of course. We'll see if it's over. We'll see if it continues or if the Vegas Golden Knights have won Lord Stanley. The Ottawa Senators were sold. We'll get more news on that. Talk about it tomorrow. Peter Laviolette, new head coach of the New York Rangers. Talk about Fred VanVleet. Going to get into the U.S. Open favorites. Starts on Thursday, so we'll get into the props, the betting favorites heading into the tournament. Some NFL stories as well. We got some Stephon Diggs and Buffalo drama, which is fascinating. Saquon Barkley with the Giants with mini camps going on. DeAndre Hopkins is visiting teams. Dalvin Cook is a free agent. So NFL in June, you know I love it. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. So that's what's on the docket tomorrow, Wednesday. Another beautiful day today before we get another week of rain, which of course, well, to quote every old person, I guess we need it, which we don't at this point. It's rained enough, in my opinion. We'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. This is To The Point.